U.S. President Joe Biden left Jeddah on Saturday, concluding his first visit to the Middle East as the president. Analysts here said Biden's visit has achieved a limited number of strategic goals on his selfish agenda. He neither succeeded in his bid to form a regional military alliance against Iran, nor convinced Saudi Arabia to act immediately to raise oil output. In Israel, Biden signed the U.S.-Israel Strategic Partnership Joint Declaration, pledging to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Despite Biden's show of unity, Israel was displeased with his continued efforts to restore the Iranian 2015 nuclear deal.
The real issue what the United States is going to do about Iran. This is what Israel is very much concerned about, and we know that there are difference of opinion between Israel and the United States on this issue.
In the Arab world, differences exist with regard to how to deal with the so-called growing Iranian threat. Analysts warned that Biden's bid to create a regional anti-Iran security alliance, also known as the Middle East version of NATO, still faces obstacles.
If the U.S. plans to isolate Iran from its neighbors, it will be bad for the stability of the region.
Meanwhile, during his visit to Israel and a short stay in the West Bank city of Bethlehem, Biden made no real push for reviving the stalled Israeli-Palestinian peace process, ignoring the Palestinians' repeat calls. Thousands of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip held protests against Biden's visit, sliming his biased pro-Israeli stance on the Palestinian-Israel issue.
في كلمة الرئيس الأمريكي بايدن في زيارته لمدينة بيت لحم وحتى مستشفى المقاصد في القدس، وردت بعض التعابير لها علاقة بمعاناة الفلسطين، وشبه ذلك بأنه إيرلندي، والقضية الإيرلندية معروفة لدى شعوب العالم. ولكن هذا لا يقدم شيء بالنهاية، لأنه لم يأتي بأي جديد، لم يأتي بأي مشروع سياسي يضفي إلى مفاوضات مع إسرائيل لعملية السلام. هو قدم الموضوع المالي على السياسي، وأن الفلسطينيين ليسوا بحاجة إلى فقط الجانب المالي، هم بحاجة إلى مسار سياسي يفضي إلى إنهاء الاحتلال وإنشاء دولة فلسطين.
One of the major goals of Biden's controversial visit to Saudi Arabia, which was concluded by domestic criticism, is to persuade Riyadh to sharply increase oil production to stabilize the energy market. Pressured by the rising inflation and a continued slide of his approval rating back home, Biden tries to lower the oil price by seeking help from oil-rich Saudi Arabia. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, who traded barbs with Biden over the human rights issued at their meeting, indicated that the kingdom will increase oil production to 13 million barrels per day at most, but warned that unrealistic energy policies would lead to higher inflation.
وأظن أن بايدن لم ينجح في كلتا الخطوتين، لأنه في الأولى طبعا الاستقبال السعودي في الحقيقة كان استقبالا فاترا للغاية، كان فيه نوع من الندية والخشونة النسبية في الردود وفي الألفاظ، عندما يتم نقد السعودية في قضية مقتل خاشقجي يرد عليه محمد بن سلمان بأن كل الدول لها أخطاء.
Analysts said that priority of U.S. agenda in the Middle East is to contain Iran and maintain U.S. hegemony, calling on the region to open to all sides instead of following the U.S. lead.
الإدارة الديمقراطية تحديدا خرجت من المنطقة العربية أو بدأت تخرج من المنطقة العربية، واعتبرتها منطقة حديقة خلفية للإدارة الأمريكية بالسنوات السابقة.
The problem with the U.S. policy is that they still rely on military force, and they dictate to their enemies and friends alike what they want to do and what they have to do. It's like a list of what certain states should be implement and what lines they shouldn't cross. Whether these states are perceived as American foes or so-called allies, they have to be aligned with the U.S. policy. I don't think that we should follow the American dictates in this regard. We should be open to all sides, and we should follow what's in our interest. And our interest is not confrontation based on who's the foe of Washington and who's their ally, or maybe short-term ally, because we know very well that many times in the history they would dump their allies and they would betray their so-called friendly regimes.